Welcome back, everybody, for another deep dive with LPot. Today, we're going super deep on a question that's been buzzing around the community.
Oh, yeah.
Is technology actually making us more lonely?
Yeah.
Like, even though it's supposed to make work easier, is it kind of backfiring and making us feel more isolated?
Yeah, it's a real head scratcher, isn't it? I mean, we're more connected than ever, but it seems like so many of us are feeling more and more alone.
Totally. And, I was digging into the research you sent over, and
Oh, yeah.
one of the articles even says tech has created a whole new kind of loneliness.
Wow.
Like, it's not just the regular loneliness we already knew about. It's like this extra layer on top.
Interesting.
And it's especially noticeable at work.
Hmm.
We could work from anywhere and do these virtual meetings, but
Right.
is there a cost to all that? Like, are we missing out on real human connection just to be a bit more efficient?
It makes you think, doesn't it? Like we've traded those water cooler chats for a Slack message or a team lunch for another Zoom meeting.
Exactly. It seems efficient,
Yeah.
but is it actually making us less connected in the long run?
Well, the research definitely suggests that possibility. These tools are great for getting things done, but they can also make us feel detached. It's like we're interacting more with avatars and email addresses than with actual people.
It's like we're losing that human touch in the workplace.
Exactly. And that can really mess with our sense of well-being. Some of the studies even link this constant digital interaction to more stress and anxiety.
So wait, we're getting more efficient, but maybe more stressed and lonely too. That doesn't sound like a great deal.
Yeah, it raises a big question. How can we use all this tech without letting it isolate us?
Well, luckily, the research has some pretty practical tips. One article suggests setting up these digital boundaries.
Oh, I like that.
It's all about being intentional about when you disconnect from work and reconnect with yourself and the people you care about.
Makes sense. But for a lot of people, that can feel overwhelming. Where do you even start?
Right. It's like,
Like, how do you actually do that?
exactly. Well, the article suggests starting small.
Mhm.
Just pick one little thing to change today. Like maybe turn off those work notifications after a certain hour or have one night a week that's completely tech-free.
I like that small steps can lead to big changes, right?
Absolutely. And it's not about like throwing your phone in the ocean.
Uh-huh.
It's about using technology in a way that makes your life better, not worse.
Totally.
Okay, so we've talked about the potential downsides of all this tech at work,
Mm-hmm.
but I'm curious, do the articles offer any solutions that go beyond just unplugging?
They do, actually. One of them highlights the importance of finding smaller, more tight-knit communities, both online and offline.
Interesting. I can see where they're going with this. It's about finding those spaces where you can have genuine interactions.
Exactly. The article specifically mentions things like Discord servers or Slack groups that are focused on a specific interest. They say these spaces can create a sense of belonging that you don't always find on those massive social media platforms.
It's like finding your people you know,
Mm-hmm.
those who really get you and share your passions.
Exactly. And those connections are so valuable, especially when the world feels so isolating.
So instead of just mindlessly scrolling through our feeds, we should actively seek out communities where we can have real conversations and build actual relationships.
You got it. It's about being proactive and intentional with your connections, both online and in person.
Speaking of proactive, one of the articles actually encourages reaching out to people even when it feels difficult.
I know, right? Seems counterintuitive. When you're feeling lonely, the last thing you want to do is reach out.
Exactly. But the article makes a good point. Even small acts of connection can make a big difference.
So what are they suggesting? Like just randomly texting someone you haven't talked to in forever?
Not quite. They're talking about quality over quantity. It's about deepening the relationships you already have with a few key people.
Oh, okay. So maybe calling a close friend instead of just liking their Instagram post, or actually scheduling that coffee date with a coworker instead of just sending a quick email.
Exactly. It's about making that conscious effort to cultivate deeper connections. And that starts with asking yourself, who are the people in your life you really want to connect with more?
That's a great question for everyone listening to think about. But what if you're even struggling with those smaller, more intimate connections? I mean, the articles mentioned a few other strategies, right?
They do. And this next one might surprise you. One of them talks about spending time in nature as a way to combat loneliness.
Wait, really? How does being in nature help you feel less lonely?
I know it sounds a little strange, but there's actually a lot of research to back it up. Spending time outdoors has been shown to reduce stress and anxiety, both of which can make you feel more lonely.
So it's like hitting the reset button on your nervous system.
Yeah, in a way,
Yeah.
but it goes deeper than that. The article says that nature helps us connect to something bigger than ourselves. reminds us that we're part of something larger and more interconnected.
That's a beautiful way to put it.
It is. And it speaks to the power of nature to create a sense of peace and belonging, which can be so grounding when you're feeling isolated.
So even just taking a walk in the park or sitting under a tree can help us feel less lonely.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And it doesn't have to be anything fancy. Just a few minutes of being present in nature can make a huge difference.
I love that. Simple but powerful. And speaking of powerful, the articles also touch on the importance of active listening as a key to feeling less lonely.
Ah, yes, active listening. It's so important, but so many of us forget about it.
Right, but what exactly does active listening mean? It's more than just hearing what someone's saying, right?
Exactly. Active listening is about really engaging with the person who's talking, paying attention to their words, their body language, even their unspoken emotions. It's about being present in that moment and showing them that you genuinely care about what they have to say.
So it's not just passive listening. It's about being an active participant in the conversation and making sure the other person feels heard.
Exactly. And the article points out that active listening isn't just about connecting with others. It's also about connecting with yourself.
Oh, that's interesting. What do they mean by connecting with yourself through active listening?
Well, it's about tuning into your own inner voice. Paying attention to your thoughts and feelings without judging them.
So it's like practicing mindfulness, but with your own internal world.
Exactly. And the article suggests that this kind of self-awareness is actually crucial for combating loneliness. Because the better you understand yourself, the better you can build healthy and fulfilling relationships with others.
Makes sense. And speaking of building healthy habits, one of the articles had some interesting thoughts on the idea of a digital detox.
Oh, yes. Digital detox. I have to admit I'm guilty of a little doom scrolling every now and then.
We've all been there. But this article actually reframes the whole idea of a digital detox. They present it not as some kind of punishment, but as a form of self-care.
I like that. It's about taking a break from all the noise and stimulation of the digital world and giving yourself some space to breathe and reconnect with yourself.
Exactly. And it doesn't have to be anything extreme. Even a few hours a week can make a difference.
So maybe it's putting your phone away during dinner or setting aside a specific time each day to disconnect from social media.
Exactly. It's about being intentional with your technology use and making sure it's serving you, not the other way around.
Okay, I'm starting to get the picture. It's about finding that balance between staying connected digitally and making sure we're cultivating those deeper, more meaningful connections in real life.
Exactly.
And one last point from the articles that I think is worth highlighting is the power of small acts of kindness.
Oh, yes. That comes up a lot. But how does doing something nice for someone else help combat loneliness?
Well, it's about reminding ourselves that we're all connected, that we're all part of a larger community.
So even something as simple as holding the door open for someone or giving a genuine compliment can help us feel less isolated.
Exactly. Those little acts of kindness create a ripple effect, spreading positivity and connection throughout our communities.
I love that. And it's a great reminder that we all have the power to make a difference in the lives of others, even in small ways.
Absolutely. So to recap, we've been exploring this complex relationship between technology and loneliness. And while technology can definitely contribute to those feelings of isolation, it can also be a powerful tool for connection when we use it mindfully and intentionally.
Exactly. It's about finding that balance, setting boundaries, and prioritizing those real-life connections that bring us joy and fulfillment.
Well said. But we've only just scratched the surface of this topic. Are you ready to dive a little deeper?
Absolutely. Let's do it. You know, one of the sources mentioned something that really stuck with me. They talked about how technology, especially in the workplace, has kind of created this transactional way of interacting with each other.
Transactional. What do you mean by that?
It's like we're always focused on getting things done as quickly as possible, sending quick emails, firing off a message on Slack, jumping on a video call just to check off a task. We're missing those spontaneous moments of connection, those casual conversations that help build real relationships.
I see what you mean. It's like we're treating each other more like robots than actual human beings.
Exactly. And the article argues that this way of communicating can leave us feeling empty, even if we're getting a ton of work done.
So it's like we're achieving more, but connecting less. And that lack of connection can be really isolating, especially at work, where we spend so much of our time.
Exactly. Which brings us back to that question from the LPot community. Is technology creating a whole new reason for loneliness? And based on these sources, I'd say it definitely plays a role.
So we've talked about how technology, while making work easier in some ways, might also be contributing to this feeling of isolation and loneliness.
Yeah.
But what can we actually do about it? The articles mentioned a few ideas, right?
They do. One of them dives into this idea of digital minimalism, which encourages us to be more intentional about the technology we allow into our lives.
Digital minimalism. I like the sound of that. Tell me more.
It's not about ditching technology completely. It's about being more selective about what we use and making sure it aligns with our values and our goals.
So it's like choosing quality over quantity when it comes to our tech.
Exactly. The source suggests taking a look at all the apps, websites, and devices we use and asking ourselves, does this actually add value to my life? Does it bring me joy? Or is it just a distraction?
That's a really good question. And I think a lot of us could benefit from asking ourselves that more often.
Absolutely. And if we find that certain technologies are doing us more harm than good, then maybe it's time to let them go, or at least set some boundaries around how we use them.
I love that idea. It's about taking back control of our digital lives and making sure technology is serving us, not the other way around.
Exactly. And one technique the article mentions is setting up these tech-free zones in our homes or workplaces.
Tech-free zones, what would that look like?
It could be as simple as no phones at the dinner table or having a dedicated workspace that's free from any digital distractions.
So it's about creating spaces where we can disconnect from the digital world and just be present with ourselves and the people around us.
Exactly. And the article says these tech-free zones can have a huge impact on our mental well-being.
So it's not just about being more productive. We're talking about improving our overall quality of life.
Exactly. Which leads to another interesting point raised by the sources, the importance of building real connections in the workplace.
Okay, so besides setting boundaries and creating tech-free zones, how can we actively cultivate those connections?
One source suggests being more proactive about socializing at work. Instead of waiting for someone else to strike up a conversation, why not be the one to reach out?
So invite a coworker to grab coffee or suggest a team lunch outing.
Exactly. It's about making an effort to connect with people on a personal level, beyond just work tasks.
I like that. It's a good reminder that we're all human beings with shared experiences.
Precisely. And those shared experiences are powerful for building relationships and creating a sense of community.
But what if you work remotely or have a job that doesn't involve a lot of face-to-face interaction?
That's a great question. And the articles address that too. They recommend finding online communities or virtual meetups that align with your interests.
So even if you're physically isolated, you can still find ways to connect with people online.
Exactly. It's about being creative and using the tools available to build those connections, no matter where you are.
Okay, so we've talked about digital minimalism, tech-free zones, and being more proactive about socializing. Are there any other strategies the articles highlight for dealing with loneliness in this tech-driven world?
There's one more that I think is really relevant to the LPot community, especially given their focus on personal growth.
Okay, I'm intrigued. Tell me more.
One of the sources argues that having a strong sense of self-worth is crucial for combating loneliness. It's about learning to love and accept yourself for who you are, flaws and all.
That's a powerful message. But how does self-love connect to feeling less lonely?
The source explains that when you feel good about yourself, you don't need as much validation from other people. You're more comfortable being alone with your thoughts, and you're more likely to attract healthy relationships into your life.
So it's not about becoming a hermit and shutting yourself off from the world. It's about building a strong foundation of self-love so that you can approach relationships from a place of wholeness.
Exactly. And the source suggests things like practicing gratitude, doing things that bring you joy, and surrounding yourself with supportive people.
Those are all great tips, especially in today's world where we're constantly being told we're not good enough.
I agree. It's more important than ever to cultivate self-love and remember that we are all worthy of connection, just as we are.
Well said. So we've explored a bunch of different strategies for combating loneliness in our increasingly tech-driven world. But I'm curious, is there a flip side to all this? Can technology actually be used to foster connection rather than hinder it?
I mean, that's a good point. We've been focusing on the downsides, but could technology actually be used to make our relationships stronger?
I think so.
Yeah.
It's easy to fall into the trap of thinking tech is the bad guy, but it's really just a tool like any other. It depends how we use it.
So how can we use tech to actually improve our connections? Well, think about it. Technology lets us stay in touch with people no matter where they are. We can have video calls with family across the country or work on projects with colleagues on the other side of the world.
Right. It's like these tools can bridge the distance between us.
Exactly. And it's not just about keeping up with people we already know. Technology can help us connect with new people who have similar interests. There are all sorts of online communities and platforms where we can find those like-minded folks.
I actually met one of my best friends through an online book club. We started chatting in the comments and realized we had so much in common. We've been close ever since.
That's awesome. A perfect example of how technology can spark these meaningful connections that might never have happened otherwise.
So it's not about ditching technology completely. It's about being smarter about how we use it.
Exactly. We can choose to use technology to enrich our relationships instead of letting it replace them. We can use it to plan get-togethers or even just send a quick text to let someone know we're thinking of them.
I love that.
Yeah.
It's about using tech as a way to connect instead of letting it be a barrier.
Precisely. And here's another thing. Technology can actually help us be better communicators. One of the sources talked about how tools like Slack or instant messaging can help clear up misunderstandings or allow us to express ourselves better in writing.
I get that. Sometimes it's easier for me to get my thoughts across when I write them down.
And sometimes a quick message can stop a small issue from turning into a huge argument.
Makes sense. So in a way, technology can help us improve the quality of our communication.
Absolutely. The key is using the right tool for the situation.
So it sounds like when it comes to loneliness, technology isn't inherently good or bad. It all boils down to how we use it.
Exactly. We can let it take over our lives and push people away, or we can use it intentionally to nurture our relationships and build meaningful connections.
I think that's a really important reminder. We all have the power to choose how technology impacts us and our relationships.
Well said. To everyone listening, we encourage you to keep exploring these ideas and share your thoughts and experiences in the LPot Community Forum.
And remember, even small changes can make a big difference. So think about one small step you can take today to use technology in a way that enriches your life and strengthens your connection with others.
That's a great place to leave it.
Until next time, stay curious, stay connected, and keep diving deep.